This time on Rad Rat Video, we're talking about if we're in a tech bubble and when it'll burst. Let's do it. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding and skateboarding video games and everything I can think of in the skateboarding world. Today I'm answering your questions. These are all submitted through radratvideo.com. There's a form there on the homepage if you want to send your own for a future video. First one today is from Patrick, who says, no other sport or art form seems to place a ton of importance on doing things switch. Nobody looks at an NFL kicker and says, yeah, but he only kicks with his right leg. Weak. When discussing art, nobody says, she's pretty good, but she only ever uses her right hand. Where do you think the progression of skateboarding would be if switch never became a thing? Most modern pros have had to spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours learning several tricks switch. What if they had dedicated all those hours further refining their regular stance? So I have discussed this a couple of times in the past, but nobody has phrased it the way you have before. I think I did come up with the, if you didn't paint that left-handed, who cares, way to think about it. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting thing to me because I can't think of anything else where that's important. Only other similar types of things, like on a bike, you have your normal spin, you have your opposite spin. So one way feels more natural, one's the hard way. So people are more impressed if you do things the hard way. But yeah, no actual sport requires you to do things with the off foot or off hand. You don't throw a free throw with your offhand and get extra points or something like that. And I think that's what the difference is. So in football, if you were to do something a harder way, you're just making it less likely for your team to get points, right? You're doing a disservice to your team and the fans if you try to show off by doing something a harder way. You want to do it the easiest way possible. I remember in the early 90s, I used to watch a lot of basketball. And I was from Michigan, so I was watching the Pistons a lot, and there was a guy named Isaiah Thomas. I think there's a guy with the same name now, but this was a different guy. And even if he was not guarded at all, he would never dunk. He would always just lightly tip the ball up in the hoop because he wasn't trying to show off. He was trying to just get the points. It's not about drawing attention to himself. And my dad used to love him for that. And he hated everyone who was too flashy and showy. And I picked up a little bit of that when I was a kid. But yeah, you don't get more points for showing off. You don't help anybody by doing things with the wrong foot. But in skateboarding or BMX or scootering or whatever, you get some more points. You get more style points for doing things switch. You are more impressing. You impress more people by doing things switch, And that's what filming skateboarding is about, is making a really impressive video. It's like showing off more. So doing things that are harder just because they're harder is such a native thing to switch. So if you ever see someone do a 5-0 on transition, you never see him land back to normal because all you do is kind of just lean forward and fall in. You always see him pull it to fakie because you have to fakie manual and clear the front wheels. It's a lot harder to do it to fakie. So people are always going to do it to fakie because they don't want to look like the guy who's going to take the cheap, easy way out. Right. So it's a lot different in skateboarding. But to answer your question, what would skateboarding look like if nobody did things switch? I think it would be really interesting. I think street skating would look a lot different. Lines would be a lot harder because you can't turn back around. So you wouldn't really land, let's say there's a handrail, a big flat space in the second handrail, or just a second stair set. You couldn't do a lip slide to fakie, then a switch frontside flip, and then something down the stairs, or you wouldn't do anything switch down the stairs. So you'd always have to land back to normal. You couldn't frontside flip the first stair set because you would have to just kick turn or, just turn around before the second stairs. It gives you less options. So yeah, you might be able to do tricks a little bit better or slightly more complicated tricks because you've spent more time in your normal stance. But I think it does limit you in the type of flow and the style of the stuff that you do. And something else that I think is important for skating is with tech. Even if you don't do a trick switch, you're not rolling up switch. You start normal, but you're in a nose slide or a crook or something like that. the pop out, if you want to do a flip out of a nose slide, is basically like doing a switch trick. If you can't do anything switch, nose slides are worthless. So there's a lot of options that you get spinning into a grind, coming out fakie or switch, depending on how it is. You get a lot more options. There's more room for creativity with the access to switch tricks. So that's why I think it's important to skating. I think I've answered this much differently in the past. I've kind of changed my tune on the switch. I do appreciate and respect it more. I still don't skate switch much myself, but I do think I probably should. Okay, the next question is from Tris Bower, who says, I tried thinking of a way to ask this question, but I want to make it fun. I'm 6'7", 255 pounds, and my shoe size is 16. I'm going to convert this to metric for all of you non-Americans. I bought a strong skateboard, but even then, I'm still worried I might break it just because of my weight. Imagine you woke up and one day you have a body like mine. I know skate gear is highly based on preferences, but as someone who wants to start but can't afford to go through board after board, I'd want to know what your setup would be like if you had to wake up with a body like this. Okay, 6'7". I had a friend who was I think he was 6'9", but like 6'7", you got to duck through doorways and stuff just to get around. That it would be crazy trying to skate with a body that big. Like your feet are that big. Your board's going to have to be pretty big. I would probably go with like a 9-inch board. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But if you're worried about the strength of your board, I'm not sure you have to quite so much, because I guess to a degree. You said you're 255, right? That's more than an average skater because you're so much taller. But, skateboarders often land on their boards. But I guess you get less leeway. If you have to land bolts every time to not break your board, then you're still probably going to break your board a lot. So there are quite a few different boards that have like more high-tech stuff. There is LibTech has, I don't think they do carbon fiber, but they have like plies that go sideways and like strengthen it up in different ways. There are boards with carbon fiber. There are lithe boards that have the composite rails and other stuff like that. I would definitely go with a more high-tech board that is kind of along these lines. But the size is going to be a bit of an issue with your shoe size. So what I would do before buying one of those boards online, because it's unlikely you're going to be able to find them at your local skate shop, I would go there anyway and stand on some boards and get an idea of what feels okay to you. With a shoe size that big, I would say probably about a 9-inch boards might be hard to find that aren't vert shaped. If you want to skate vert, then that's great. But yeah, I would probably go on the biggest size you can get of a high-tech board. And then all the rest of the stuff should be normal. So I wish you the best of luck for your question. If I woke up in a body like that, I might not be skateboarding, but I don't know. I can't imagine what that would be like. But best of luck to you. Next question is from Josh, who says, a couple of friends and I were playing with the camera and taking stupid photos of us posing in different grind slide stalls on ledges, and this brought up a question to me. If I've done a trick on a ledge, does the photo have to be a shot while I'm doing the trick, or can I just retake the photo after posing in that position? You can't take a fake picture of a trick you've landed before. Here's the rule. If Thrasher or Transworld or an actual print publication published a photo, the rule was always that you had to have landed the trick and the photo had to be of an attempt. So you can't just fake it. And you can tell if you're faking a back tail, your weight's not going to be back, and there's not going to be any blur. It's going to be fake and people are going to know. If you say you've done a back tail on the ledge, you can just try one. If you lock in, take the picture, and it looks good, that's fine. The picture doesn't have to be of a land, but you have to have landed the trick that you're doing right there. Do you have to land it in the same session? I don't know. I feel like you probably should. If you landed it last week and no one was there, your camera person wasn't there, none of your friends were around, you just found it on your way home from work, and then you take a picture of an attempt, that's kind of a gray area, but I think that's probably okay. I'm not sure. But yeah, posing a fake trick, you can't do that. All right. Marvin asks, do you have any specific tip to land tricks into rail? I did it a few times on accident, and even some simple freestyle stuff like a toe side rail to heel side rail gives me a hard time. I can't get over the fear of landing on the rail for some reason. Since you have done a lot of this stuff in the past, do you have any tip to land on the rail consistently and with more confidence? So when he says rail, you may think of that as primo. That's what most people call it. Although a primo slide has to be a slide. So when you're not sliding, it's called a rail stand, not a primo. Just for clarification, in case you heard that question and didn't understand what he was talking about. So yeah, one of the things I like to do in freestyle is land tricks back or like from rail or back to rail. And there's lots of different ones you can do. Casper to rail or, different flips back to rail. And it is a skill and there is a technique to it. So if you see someone do it, you can get really consistent with it and do it over and over and over again. But if you don't know that, if you skate a bunch of street and you see someone do a trick to rail, you may think it was a fluke. Because it can happen on accident while you're skating street, but there is a technique to it. First of all, make sure your board is set up properly. I would suggest having your truck width with the wheels, because your wheels on freestyle typically cover up the nut so that it doesn't get all messed up. Make sure that isn't as wide as the board. The board should be taller because that'll sit more stable. It's not super important to land in rail, but to flip out, it makes a big difference because you can build up some pressure and the board doesn't just tip over. So you build up that pressure and then right when you tip it, then it flips really fast. So if you want to do double and triple flips out of it, that helps a lot. But the technique to actually land in it to me is to not jump very high and to keep my feet kind of flat and low. So keep my feet toward close to the board as it's flipping and keep my feet flat and kind of push them down. You don't want to catch with the balls of your feet and kind of stretch out your ankles or anything like that. You want to be close and just kind of slam them down. And the timing is big, but jumping low is a really important part. You're not trying to get air and land. When you try to do a kick flip and you get some height and you land on accident, that's when you get hurt. But if you hop 3 inches and then you catch it just right, it's not that bad. You stay really close to the board and you are prepared for it and you can land it pretty consistently. It helps to be low as well, because if you miss, let's say the board flips too much and it lands normal grip side up, you're prepared to land 3 inches higher, but it doesn't matter because your legs aren't straight because you jump super high and you're about to absorb impact. You're kind of just like this. So if you land a couple inches lower, it's not a big deal. So it's not very likely that you'll get hurt if you do it that way, and it does take some practice. But you can just do it by touch. I think at some point the board flips so fast that you're not really planning it out. You can feel if it's going to work before you ever actually commit to it. So hopefully that helps. It does take some practice. All right, the next question is from someone with a very long name, but I'm going to attempt to pronounce it just for fun. It's Yosef Wissarianowicz Stalefish, who says, do we have a tech skate bubble and will it burst? Skateboarding goes bananas with double late flip manuals, and so on. The same goes for the gnarly skating like the 25 stairs in Lyon. Can people still relate to this? Will this bubble burst and concentration on style will be the popular thing afterwards? That's an interesting question because you ask if tech is in a bubble and then mention huge gaps at the same time. I think we are, in the world of skateboarding, reaching new heights in all kinds of categories. There's super tech, there's the big gaps, there's creativity, there's hybrid skating like freestyle and street, or street tricks on vert, or any sort of category seems to be at its peak right now. And will it ever burst and go back to style only being the only thing that matters? I don't think so. I think that I think style is always going to be important and probably the most important thing, but you always have to grow and kind of pull back slightly. So someone has to be the one who's out there inventing stuff, being the first person to ever land this trick, and maybe they land it sketchy, but they've proved that it's possible, and now the next person can come back and try to do it better and cleaner and all that kind of stuff. So will tech ever not be popular? I hope not, because that's my favorite thing to see. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more respect for simple tricks done well. If I see someone do a really nice tray flip and they catch it front foot as it's kind of coming around, and they're doing a gap and they clear it and then they land in the bank on the other side, I can really respect that more when back in the day, if they had done a 360 triple flip and they barely cleared the gap and they didn't catch it and they landed and they steered way over here, I would have been much more impressed by that back in the day. Now I think I'd be more toward the clean style sort of way. But I don't think there's ever a time when tech is going to be considered not good. You know, like if you could do a more difficult trick clean versus a clean simple trick, most people are going to prefer the tech one nowadays. That was not true though when I was first starting. So back in, I don't know, 2006 or so, I was really active on different skate sites and groups and forums and all that kind of stuff. And I remember people always would argue that, you know, a 360 double flip looked worse. It doesn't matter how clean you do it, no matter how high you catch it, it's always going to look worse because it's not as balanced as a 360 flip. You know, that is one full spin, one full flip. It always looks good from every direction. A 360 double, you got to kick way out here. And, you know, even if you do it as cleanly as possible, it's still not going to look great. I guess it's possible that that kind of thinking could come back and people could be more interested in the more simple stuff. But I find it kind of hard to believe because of the way that skateboarding is going. Most people consume skateboarding content by going on Instagram and watching the latest clips from today. If you are scrolling through and you see the same trick 200 times done by different people in different places, but it's the same thing, I think it has to get old. Back when you would get one tape every few months at most, seeing the same trick in a new spot wasn't a big deal. But now with the constant bombardment of new stuff, I think it has to be new to stay interesting and exciting. And that's where tech has to come in. So I've thought about this a lot. People have asked me different sorts of questions about where the future of skateboarding is going. It's really tough to say. I could see different sorts of genres coming about. You know, like maybe street isn't the big thing in the next 10 years or something like that. But I don't think that tech is really going to burst and become less popular in the near future. So that's it for now. If you have a question for yourself, go to radratvideo.com and submit it there on the homepage. You can submit them through Patreon, where you will get either a direct answer or it will be on video, depending on what the question is. And make sure you subscribe, hit the like button if you like the video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out.